Welcome to Flashpoints. I'm Jeff Pegues, and I'm joined by CBS News senior national security analyst Juan Zarate. Thanks for being with us
Great
once
to be
again.
With you, Jeff. Thank you.
46 Republican senators have signed a letter to Iran. The letter says, among other things, quote, "We will consider any agreement regarding your nuclear weapons program that is not approved by the Congress as nothing more than an executive agreement between President Obama and Ayatollah Khamenei. The next president could revoke such an executive agreement with the stroke of a pen, and future Congresses could modify the terms of the agreement at any time." So that's just part of this letter to Iran. You say, wow, because this is a clear signal to Iran's leaders that if the president makes a deal, we may have the final say anyway.
Yeah. What you have are those 46 senators basically injecting themselves directly into the negotiation.
And that's unusual.
I think it's unusual, of course. And of course, you've had the debate in Congress around whether or not they should impose additional sanctions, have triggers for that, whether or not there should be, as Senator Corker has proposed, congressional approval of any agreement. But that's all been a debate within Washington. With this open letter to the Iranian regime, what you have these senators doing is injecting their prerogative and the notion that Congress really does have a say directly into the negotiations, with a message to the Iranian regime, obviously, but also to the administration. And it's basically, you have to listen to Congress, and a deal of this size and magnitude really does have to have a congressional voice attached to it. But this is pretty remarkable in the middle of the negotiations for the senators to send this kind of an open letter and really putting a marker down that they have a voice and they will have a say in what happens with this negotiation.
Historically speaking, this country has not conducted foreign policy in this way. Congress has largely stayed out of negotiations of this magnitude, right?
Yeah. I see this as a reflection and a symptom of a breakdown of the discussions between the administration and Congress. What you would typically have is a unified voice, especially when you're talking about high order diplomacy or negotiations. And a lot of the wrangling that you're seeing now out in the open, especially in the wake of the Bibi Netanyahu speech before Congress, would happen behind closed doors. There would be the administration trying to wrestle Congress trying to get its interests at the table, but all this happening behind closed door, and then a unified voice and face of the United States in diplomacy. What you've had in the last couple of years, I think, is a rupture between Congress and the administration. With the administration, I think, having some blame here, not being open enough about where it's going with the negotiation, and not being willing to really explain why it thinks where the negotiations are going represent a good deal for America.
We have less than a minute left. Let's talk about some of the senators, Republican senators, who did not sign on to this letter.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting part of this, right? You have 46 senators. Not all of the Republican senators signed on. You have Senator Corker, who's the chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, not signing on. He was probably, I don't know this to be the case, but my analysis suggests he was probably sensitive to some of the issues we were discussing, not wanting to necessarily either inject Congress prematurely into the negotiations or scuttle his own bill before Congress to have a clear voice in what happens in the agreement. You have Senator Alexander, a longstanding senator from Tennessee, Senator Portman from Ohio, who has worked in the executive before and understands the prerogatives. And so a whole set of senators that decided not to sign on. And it's going to be interesting to hear from them as to why they didn't.
And it's going to be interesting to hear the White House response as well, and where these talks go from here post this letter.
I bet they're seething, and I bet they're quietly objecting. I think you're going to hear some more publicly soon.
For Juan Zarate, I'm Jeff Pegues, and that's Flashpoints.